Welcome to Conversations on Sustainability, the podcast where we discuss issues surrounding sustainability, the environment, as well as the individuals and organizations working to create positive change. I'm your host, Henry Palmer. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations on Sustainability. Today, we are talking about plastics and alternatives to plastics and reducing plastic waste. So interestingly, every year, there's over 10 million tons of plastic waste dumped into the oceans. And one of the things we hear a lot about is, oh, we can recycle and so on and so forth. But less than 9% of single-use plastics are recycled. So today, I'm joined by Kristi and Kevin of BeeBAGZ to talk about the plastics crisis and some of the alternatives that we have out there and available to us. So Kristi and Kevin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and excited to talk about BeeBAGZ and all the great work that you're doing.
Thanks, Henry. Great to be here.
Thanks for having us, Henry.
So let's dive right into, first, love to hear about both of you and your journey and how BeeBAGZ kind of got started and what you were, the why behind it and what you were trying to do.
I've been using beeswax wrap in my house for years and got rid of the need for cling wrap and really liked that. But right beside it were my plastic bags, and I scoured the market and couldn't find any bag that was plastic free. So I took the beeswax wrap and made it into a sewn bag. I found the wraps fell apart in my kids' lunches and so forth. Started in my basement in the crock pot and a hot plate, and started making it for friends, and they liked it. So they said, "Hey, you should make this into a business." So 2018, EnviroLove was launched and BeeBAGZ was started. And I am an idea creator and dreamer, and really love that creative side of the business. But felt that I was missing somebody that was sort of going to be the ground floor main guy. And Kevin and I have known each other for years, and so we had discussions. And Kevin, why did you join, other than my begging and pleading?
I'd spent many years in the corporate world, and up until about 3 years ago, when I left that world, I knew I wanted to do something that was a little bit more personally meaningful to me. I didn't know what that was. And, as Kristi mentioned, she had been bouncing ideas off of me with regards to, BeeBAGZ, and we were one of the households that were testing it out. And, I started to help her a little bit, and then we decided to join forces. And I have to be honest with you, I think I was an average individual when it came to sustainability, right? I did my thing around the home, made sure I was recycling, thinking that I was doing something good for the environment at that point in time. But it wasn't really until, started to get into the business that my eyes really were opened to what was going on out there with regards to, things such as plastic pollution. And it resonated with me. And I realized that, what I was looking for, that meaningful connection, this business could provide. And when we think about plastic pollution, what it's doing to the environment, what it's doing for things such as climate change. So for me, it was about finding something that resonated with me and could have a long-lasting impact, for my kids and generations to come. So that's why I joined forces with Kristi.
I love both those kind of origin stories. One, the looking at what you're using around the household. And of course, we've talked about how the household is a major producer of plastic waste. And you start to kind of look around and say, oh my goodness, this is made of plastic and that's made of plastic. And we're just packing, whether it's packing lunches or so on. And I love the fact that you, Kristi, were, or you were using a product, beeswrap, already to try and cut down on waste, and then you saw this other opportunity saying there are not these bags available, and trying to solve that problem. And then Kevin, I personally can resonate as well with what you said. Resonates with me insofar as you start to dig a little deeper, and you look into sustainability and some of the issues, you just keep, you're shocked in one way. You keep taking a step further back and further back. And I love the way you say you sort of came to it almost as a average consumer that, thought you were doing your part. And then as you dug deeper and deeper and deeper, you found, there was more to be done, and what the reality of, our plastics problems is.
I think one of the things a lot of people don't realize as we sort of move into this is 65% of the plastic waste actually comes from our households. We always think, oh, it's big Coca-Cola, which are definitely a big part of it, but it's us. It's us that needs to make the changes. It's not, we're looking for, governments and corporations to fix things for us. But when you look at that kind of a stat, you actually have a lot of power. We always think as an individual, we don't have any. But collectively we can. And if you think that 65%, 65 to 70% of all of the plastic pollution comes from us, well, this is where the problem has to be solved, is with us.
Right. And I'll add on to that. I think, everybody talks about the 3 R's, the reduce, the reuse, recycling. And as I mentioned, I think I was focused on recycling, which I think the average household, does as well. And thinking that, every 10 trips I made to the curb to take my blue box out, maybe only one of those was actually being recycled. The rest was ending up in the landfill. And when you think about it from that perspective, it's mind boggling. Right.
I came across a term the other day, which I think fits, nicely with it, which is the idea of kind of wish cycling, where you're putting things in that blue bin or that recycling bin and taking it to the curb, and you can feel you feel good about it. You're doing your part, but it's wishful thinking in many ways. And to your point, out of 10 trips, maybe one of it actually is effectively recycled. And furthermore, you recycle that bottle or that bag or whatever it is, and it doesn't come back to life as another bottle or a bag. It's downcycled, and it's turned into fleece or carpet or so on. And I think this is some consumers get lost in this. One of the things that I found that I love about BeeBAGZ and what you've done, and you look around the house, or you look around the kitchen, and there's so much going on with food preparation and consumption in the kitchen area. And if you have kids, it just increases exponentially. You're packing lunches and this and that and everything. And maybe you're, for me, I'm always halfway through a pepper. And what do you do with that? And the ability to, store food and keep food fresh and help, reduce waste there, food waste, and use a non-plastic item to do so. I think that's been, I know in our fridge, we have multiple BeeBAGZ filled with, vegetables, fruits, and so on that we're kind of, working through. Could you tell me a little bit about, the process and your thinking also around the food waste side and what you found there?
The food waste, I think, was secondary to what we were trying to do. We didn't know until we started testing it in our own kitchen just how great it was for keeping your lettuce fresh longer. And I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin, it was the sort of thing that made you jump on board because of how long the lettuce had stayed fresh in your fridge for. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was testing these bags out, Kristi had given them to me. And as I mentioned at the time, I wasn't already down that sustainability journey or, road. So when she gave me the bags to test, I was like, okay, what do I use these things for? And slowly, when I went out riding, I would put my dates and my nuts in there. And from there, I slowly expanded, using different things around, that I would typically store in the fridge. But the thing that really wowed me one day was, I used to buy my lettuce in those clamshells. And I decided it used to infuriate me because every 2 or 3 days into the compost it started to get all moldy. So I decided to store it in a bee bag one day. And for up to a week, every time I went in there, the produce remained fresh. And that was when I said, whoa, there really is something about this. We talk about keeping food fresh, but I think until you truly see it, right in front of your eyes, what it does, that's the wow, the kind of wow factor of that product in terms of helping to keep your food fresh longer.
And what a difference it makes for consumers that you're both helping eliminate unnecessary plastics and then and it's so I found it, and I hope she'll probably watch this at some point, and I'll be in trouble. But when my mother-in-law comes to stay, the fridge fills with food, and the waste. You feel so guilty at this. To your point, the lettuce went bad and now it's just going in the compost, and you didn't get around to consuming it. And being able to keep things, fresher longer is, a huge benefit as families are going through things and so on. So another question for you that I'm fascinated to hear about in your story. What surprised you as you were working through, over the years since you've launched? What were some big, we talked about the how long it kept food fresh and so on, but as an organization, as you've grown, what have been some big sort of surprises or things that you've come across that have really helped you take a step back?
I would say how quick Europe is to adapt, how much they're interested. The distributors there reached out to us. We didn't even have to try and work to find distributorship there. I guess, Kevin, you did quite a bit of work, but in the end, but how quick they are to want to find something that does eliminate their plastic and their food waste, how much further ahead they are with that than we are in some ways. Is that the kind of question you're meaning?
No, I mean that's fascinating. The European adoption rate has just been greater for this type of product.
The other thing I think people kept saying to us, you shouldn't be making it here. You should have it be made overseas, cheaper, blah, blah, blah. And so we explored that a little bit, and the stuff that was made over there was just junk. So being able to produce in Canada is really important to us because it's Canadian beeswax, it's Canadian labor we're using. So there's jobs that we sort of really are proud of the environment we've created for the people that work to create the bags. And it's really not that much more, doesn't cost us much more. So it's just a win-win-win. But that was a surprise because a lot of people's visions on businesses are drop ship. But we really sort of created a model that it's made in North America with North American products and people, and a better product, I think, than what we can get overseas.
Well, it's interesting that you mention cost there as well, because I think one of the things that's so interesting about and so amazing about BeeBAGZ and sustainable products like this is that they are reusable, and you just you have your different size bags and so on, and I have my pepper bags, and you just use them again and again and again and rinse them out and so on when you need, and the consumer is reducing cost there because they're not tossing away and so on. So we're helping protect the environment, but actually, as you start to go down this path, the consumer can save money and reduce their household costs by choosing to sort of pursue sustainable products.
Yeah. There's another thing that I think, I've certainly come across, as the business has grown. And I think the whole category of sustainable products has grown. There's a lot of greenwashing going on out in the industry right now. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of government regulations around things, right? We see products that are being introduced all the time that speak to the green side of things when they're still comprised of some type of man-made products, or there's products out there that are being touted as being compostable, being made from things such as the bioplastics, PLA. Well, unfortunately, for the people that might be listening, those products require commercial facilities to be able to compost these products. And there's very few of them in North America. So in the majority of cases, these products are ending up in the landfill, contaminating a lot of the other products that could be composted, right? So again, they're no better than the regular single-use plastic products, that we use or that are used today. And I think, again, there's just not a lot of regulations. So consumers are really where they think they're doing something good. In essence, right, the products that they're buying are operating just like regular single-use plastics.
It's really interesting that you bring up that, thoughts around greenwashing, because it is such an important topic to discuss. I think we are seeing a huge movement towards consumer awareness of the importance of sustainability and protecting our environment. But to your point, you have these inauthentic players entering the market that are taking advantage of that. And you see it oftentimes with just, it's blatant packaging that is driven to, convince the consumer this is, that's good for them, it's good for the environment, and so on, when it really a slightly deeper look and it's not. And I think what the other piece you discussed, which is so important, is, producing your products locally and, having those touch points and keeping, supporting that local economy, and then, and growing that way sort of organically and that commitment end to end. So another question for you, we talked about sort of your why and how you got into the business, and, what you're pursuing and sort of changes you've seen over time. What is next for BeeBAGZ? What are you looking at, as you continue to grow? What's down the pipeline?
Well, the COVID was a great time to step back and work on our B Corp application, which we're almost done now, because that's quite a lengthy application to get into. So we've definitely taken the time for that, because we think that speaks to the values of the company. We've also taken some time to develop some more products, sort of look at our production. How can we eliminate all of the waste in our production process? So we've come up with fire starters, which are a zero waste way to start fires. They work really amazingly. They just use the strips of beeswax wrap bags that don't quite make the standards or from our last color run. We started making beeswax wraps from the bags as well that didn't quite make the final cut, and produce bags. So we've sort of extended our product offerings to really kind of hone in on that zero waste company-wide movement as well.
And I think BeeBAGZ is really the tip of the iceberg for us, Henry, that, from a company, our company EnviroLove, I think we're also looking at other ways in which we can really help to reduce the amount of single-use plastics. And one of the things that we've seen in our journey is the amount of plastic bags, for example, that are being used at checkout, right?
Yeah.
In Canada, it's estimated that's about 15 billion plastic bags. So imagine what that number would be in the United States, right? If we were to just multiply that by 10, for example. So the Canadian government has banned or will be banning, there will be one of 6 categories that will be banned this year. So retailers, for example, are looking for alternatives, right? Right now, those alternatives are reusable bags, which in many cases, again, are made of plastic. So again, although they can be reused, will end up in the landfill at some point in time, or traditional paper bags. So one of the things that we're working on, and we're very close to proof of concept right now, is a new paper bag that will overcome the limitations of a traditional paper bag, meaning water resistance and strength, increased strength, so less likelihood of ripping and tearing, or especially when getting wet. So that's something we're very excited about, because we see the potential not only at retail, but also for consumer goods. When you think about the number of bags that are out there, waste bags, pet waste bags, things such as lunch bags. So we see a great opportunity for products like that. So we're continuing to evolve as a company and look for different ways that we can try and, again, eliminate the amount of single-use plastics.
It's so interesting you bring that up, and it's a statistic that always kind of blows my mind whenever I come across it, is how long a single-use carrier bag, plastic bag, is used. What that lifetime is, and it's approximately 14 or 15 minutes. Somebody goes to the store and bags up their groceries, and 14 to 15 minutes of use, and then hundreds, to thousands of years in a landfill. And
Right.
when you think about that, the ratio of that, how long this was used for versus how long it's is going to sit on in a landfill breaking down, it's mind boggling.
That's the beauty of the new paper bag too, is it really talks about the circular economy because they're also recyclable. They're made from recycled content, so it really does create a circular economy. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's around 70% of all paper is recycled. So it really is a viable option with this new innovative binder that we're part of the creation of, introducing them together. It'll just create something, a whole new category, we think. So, and this wouldn't have happened if BeeBAGZ hadn't happened, because the whole idea of this happened by walking around to the retailers and the retailers saying, these are great, but I really need some help over here. What do you have? And after looking again and finding not very many great options, it's when Kevin and I started walking down that path of what we need to create something here. How can we create this? And then the innovations sort of grew from that.
I love how that just comes, right back to your origin again of here's a problem, and then how can we address it, and how can we solve this, and now you've tackled one piece and you've moved forward, and now you're looking at the next bit to continue this effort to reduce plastic waste. So what would to we sort of explored BeeBAGZ and everything that you've done in your history and the products. What would be one key takeaway for people listening in today that you would want to share with them about your organization, about single-use plastic? What's something you would like people to, if they could, have one key piece of information they take with them?
Yeah, for me, again, as I talk about the journey that I've been on, right? I think I represent, as I mentioned, an average individual. And it's a monumental undertaking when you think about starting down the sustainability path. You think, where do I start? What do I have to do? It seems so overwhelming. And I think people need to understand that just taking that small step, right? Once you take that small step, then it just grows organically in terms of the other things that you can do inside your household to make changes. But initially, it is an overwhelming thing. And I think that for me, I think for the audience is the key takeaway. If you're wondering that, just take that first step, make a small change, look to make a change in your kitchen or wherever it might be. And from there, again, it will just organically grow. You'll start to see the different ways that you can, try and make change, rather than using a Ziploc bag. There's so many different alternatives. Certainly there's our products, but just reusing things such as glass jars to store your food, stainless steel containers. There's so many different options out there that people can use, and again, I can speak to that. My wife and I are quite happy now that we don't use Ziploc bags. We don't use saran wrap in our household. And again, that's not how we started, 2 or 3 years ago, so.
To hear you articulate that and these conversations that I've had, the same theme keeps coming up again and again, which is small steps make big changes, or a lot of littles make a big. And of all the different organizations that I've had the privilege of connecting with, that theme runs throughout. And that theme of making a difference and living more sustainably and reducing waste is not to try and look at it as the whole at once and tackle it all at once, but what are the little small changes you make today? They add up, they make a difference, and then it helps you take the next step and next step, and these little littles add up and make it big.
That's the beautiful thing with the company that you're creating. For people that don't know what to do, they can look at Lochtree and see what you've done with the products that you've gathered. They know that that's something that they can look at. Like, what do I replace my coffee filters with? What do I replace my shampoo with? Well, you've kind of amassed those things into one place that people can go and look for the ideas, that because you don't want to throw things away, but what can I replace? And you start to go down that rabbit hole, and you can see all of those things. And so, like when I'm done with my shampoo bottle, I'm going to get these shampoo bars and I'm going to try that instead. And sort of just replacing things as you need them. But that's the beauty of the store that you've created, is you've already done a lot of the homework for a lot of the consumers, so that you can go to these sort of one-shop stops and really see what is available to replace in your household, and sort of put that in the back of your mind as you run out of them.
Well, Kristi, I appreciate you bringing that up, and it's been a fantastic journey for us. It's a journey of discovery that we really enjoy, and helping consumers along that path, and just look at these alternatives and make these simple changes. Well, I can't thank Kristi and Kevin. I can't thank you both enough for joining me today to talk about this. Certainly, you can find BeeBAGZ at Lochtree.com, and if you want to go directly to BeeBAGZ, it's BeeBAGZ.com, spelled with a Z or a Z at the end, depending on where you come from. But both of you, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a brilliant conversation, and we look forward to continuing to make an impact and seeing where BeeBAGZ heads in the future.
Thanks for having us on and having these conversations. It's education that will really bring the changes that we need to see.
Yeah. Thanks, Henry. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.